Well, joining me now is the czar of football. His name is Tom E. Curran. He's been in the game for a long time, and he knows all. So I thought, who else to go mano a mano than Tom? But there is a lot of stuff I want to touch as it relates to the quarterbacks in the league. And I guess let's just start with some of the more recent news as of this taping anyway, with Sam Darnold being traded away by the Jets. Is this a good decision for the Jets? And how does this affect the Patriots' plans for quarterback?
Probably is a good decision for the Jets, Carolyn. And thanks for having me very much. Miss seeing your shining face in the studios. We don't go to the studios anymore either, so I wouldn't be seeing it. But I think for the Jets, it's a change of scenery that kind of needed to happen. And it's almost with Tom Brady. While we can talk all we want about how things should have, would have, and could have turned out differently, I think there was a change of scenery that needed to happen. We know when that time hits, and they made that change. Now they're going to reboot with Wilson most likely. And in doing that reboot, is that going to be better for them? We'll see. But they are extracting draft picks. So overall for the Jets, Carolyn, they have such a bevy of draft picks now, not just from the Darnold trade, but from Jamal Adams. They're in a better place. For Carolina, I kind of like it. You know, we spend so much time in this pre-draft run-up, Carolyn, talking about, well, this kid projects to do this and that kid projects to do that. And I just continually circle back to that draft. I think it might have been 2012 or 11. The Blaine Gabbert, Jake Locker, just melange of five quarterbacks. And I think the only one who worked out was Cam Newton. So I just get leery when they get that deep on one position and people are trying to, it turns into a sweepstakes for quarterbacks. So I think Carolina did the right thing. What's it mean for the Patriots? Boy, Tom, can you talk more? What it means for the Patriots is now it takes a team.
Questions. It was my fault. I committed like the cardinal sin of question asking and started the conversation with multiple questions.
The great thing, Mano, is you and me understand this. My cardinal sin of question asking is, so could you explain whether it's that or is it something else? I'm not giving an option. So for the Patriots, it eliminates another team, in my estimation, from the top 10 who might have taken a quarterback, if indeed the Patriots want to do that.
So what do you see the Patriots doing here with their quarterback situation, right? Because you've been around this team for a very long time. You know how to read between the tea leaves down there. Are they going to be a little bit complacent, sit back and watch maybe how things shake out? Are they going to get aggressive and try to get involved in the Falcons' fourth pick in the draft? Are they going to go try to find another quarterback? Like, how do you see this all shaking out for them?
I think they're going to let the game come to them, Carolyn. Right now, you're in a situation where there are three quarterbacks who are going to go off the board in the first three picks. Do the Patriots even have those players rated in their top 15 when they stack? Because as you know, teams stack by position, the players. So they'll have a stack of quarterbacks, probably 1 through 18. And then they'll figure out whether they're draftable. And then they switch those stacks together so that you have quarterbacks against fullbacks against linebackers. In that stack, do the Patriots even have, for instance, Mac Jones in their top 25 overall players? That would be fascinating to learn. So what I think is Bill Belichick is going to let the game come to him and say, look, I understand being quarterback thirsty, but we are a smart enough and capable enough and well-rounded enough team that even if Cam Newton isn't the end-all be-all as a thrower, and even if Jarrett Stidham may never turn into anything at all, we don't have to force it. And that's the interesting thing too, Carolyn. Think about it. Robert Kraft is almost 80. Bill Belichick is soon to be 69. Do you want to draft a developmental quarterback, or do you want to just say and watch all the mistakes that get made as you develop him in the first round, or do you want to take the best player out there? Because I think that they're going to get driven down the board. The Micah Parsons, maybe even Rashawn Slater, some of the very, very good players at other positions who are going to be driven down by the 5 quarterbacks and the 3 or 4 receivers taken ahead of them.
I don't know. Do you want to, if you're Bill Belichick, develop somebody new and, like you said, be willing to go with the growing pains? Or do you want to have just made some improvements offensively, improved your red zone offensively with other stuff that they've done, and and then go like, well, okay, we'll give a Cam and Stidham and X other player a try and have that fall woefully short. I mean, I don't know if there's a right answer in either of those. Is there?
No, there's not. I mean, if you can look at, say, for instance, you want to go after Trey Lance. He's 20 years old. He didn't play Division I football. He played FCS. He played one game this year for North Dakota State because of the pandemic, and he didn't play that well in that game. He's a full-on total projection. I don't know how many years it'll be before he is a better red zone quarterback than Jarrett Stidham even. And Jarrett Stidham came in on a ridiculous learning curve. That's what I'm saying, because so much of the position is thought-based and repetition-based. And when I say thought-based, it is processing information that you've never seen before. You want to sit down and I don't even know, I'm so bad at math, try and do quadratic equations when all you've done is simple algebra, and it's going to take a while.
It's really sad what this pandemic or shortened season or Cam Gaff has done to Jarrett Stidham's career. Because if you think about it, the injury or the learning curve or the abbreviated offseason, whatever it was, I almost feel like this window that he had to really be special or to explore his potential has fallen away somehow. And I guess that's just a really sad reality of some of the stories that are going to be told in the aftermath of what has been a challenging year that has affected a lot of people financially and otherwise in the league.
You're exactly right. I mean, that to me is, I just don't think the book is written on him yet. And when we heard Robert Kraft last week, I think there were intimations that he made that have me thinking, look, the Patriots are they're not closing the door on his opportunity. Jordan Palmer was, and still is, the quarterback's coach, personal coach for Stidham. And he said that, look, Baylor is a good offense, and Auburn is a good offense. And both those coaches know how to run prolific offenses. But that's where Stidham was in college. And neither of those are what we would call great offenses in terms of translating to what you need to do in the pros. So he came in a little bit behind the eight ball. Palmer said that it was the greatest learning curve he's seen in his years of coaching that Stidham had to make. And then he got his second off season where guys make that huge leap taken from him. One more thing, and I'm babbling here, but Colt McCoy, when he was in Cleveland, he spoke about this last year with the Giants. He said the worst thing that happened to him was the 2011 lockout, because that was going into his second season. That wiped out the offseason. McCoy didn't get a chance to develop in that second year. And then you start to go, third season here, man, and you're still not very good. But we didn't have an off season last year. Yeah, I mean, everybody's got something here, but we got to move on.
It's ruthless. I wonder, the Patriots had, and I say had, expressed some interest way earlier in, well, at least reportedly, in Deshaun Watson before we learned about all of these sexual assault allegations. What is Deshaun Watson's value in the league right now?
That's a great question. I mean, he, to me, is one of the best three quarterbacks in the league. He's on a fairly manageable contract. Value is through the roof. Right now, he's, I guess, to put it plainly, radioactive. You don't know if he's going to, certainly it doesn't seem as if he's going to be incarcerated, but tracking the arc of this, certainly I think that the chance that he ends up on the commissioner's exempt list, is that right? The exempt list or suspended list? Either way, he might miss games. And I think what's puzzling is for teams to reconcile, Carolyn, how an individual who is a professional athlete needs 40 different masseuses that he's contacting via direct messages and back channels. I've covered the league for a long time, and I've talked to players about this, and they said, look, I've been in the league for more than a decade. I've never contacted a masseuse by direct masseuse, massage therapist. Right? Masseuse is, I learned this week, it's a derogatory term. So I've never contacted a massage therapist by direct message. None of that, those are circumstantial types of bits of information. And the other stuff that we have, whether it's positive interactions with Watson or the bevy of negative interactions are, again, he said, she said. Any rational team is going to look and say, why did this individual need 40 different massage therapists to work on him over the course of the last couple of years? And that's plenty of smoke to the entire situation about weird decision-making regarding getting your body rubbed.
It would be nice to think that being radioactive would be enough for teams to be dissuaded. That would be a nice theory, and maybe some are, but we've seen teams take chances on players who maybe haven't had sexual assault allegations to this extent, but certainly haven't been angels because of their value. And I think of Antonio Brown. I mean, simply put, is Deshaun Watson too radioactive for the Patriots?
I don't think that as it stands right now on this particular Wednesday afternoon, yes. The waterfall of negative attention, the unresolved aspects of it. I think he's radioactive for any new team at the moment, any new team, all of them. There has to be some explanation there that's given that says this is something that I did or didn't do. I mean, again, this is not a DUI. This is not a bar fight. This seems to be a pattern of behavior if it stands up the way it is. And it's a pattern of behavior over the course of time that might take some working out for the individual. A, maybe to realize whether or not it was even wrong in his eyes or why it was. Seems to be a disconnect there. And then B, to try and reconcile how it'll go moving forward. So it seems like this could be a process. On the football level, though, Carolyn, when you look at Deshaun Watson, his biggest agitation with the Texans was that he didn't have a large enough seat at the table and a big enough voice. And he's not going to get that here in New England. So with a no trade clause, I would think that he would be a player who wouldn't want to come to New England. But again, we've seen the Patriots take on distressed assets in the past. So as much as I sit here and talk about him being radioactive, as much as you certainly, I think, are on board with the notion that there's got to be a hell of a lot more clarity to what in God's name has been going on. There is a point at which some team would take on the distressed asset if they could get their brain around it.
I do want to kind of just talk a little bit about Aaron Rodgers on the polar opposite of all this, who feels that he is the next host of Jeopardy. Good for him. I think most people might say, don't quit your day job, you're an MVP. But if this is something that he's passionate about, that's fantastic. I just wonder what kind of Jeopardy the Packers are in here, because it seems like this relationship is white hot and contentious. And I just wonder, like, what the Packers are thinking here. They've got an MVP quarterback in a quarterback-driven league, and yet it seems like things are falling apart. Yeah,
and I think that with Rodgers, as with Manning, as with Brady, as with Montana, there is a reality-based appraisal that they all give themselves. And they say, well, why would I be any different from anybody else? It's going to end for me the same way it's ended for those guys. I think there's a little bit more reality-based reaction with Rodgers than there was with Brady. You had to basically bang Brady over the head with a sledgehammer and say, look, they don't want you. They want you to go someplace else, buddy. This has already got a foot out the door, it seems, and they don't want him to go. So it's funny, but it will end with him someplace else. Guaranteed.
How do they not know that guy well enough by now to know that if you bring in another quarterback or do something to disrupt what makes him comfortable, that is going to be a trigger potentially potent enough to send him packing with how talented he is? I mean, to me, I see this as mismanagement from the Packers. Is that wrong or right?
I think it's wrong on your part because you have to always do what's best for the team. And if you're sitting there at 25 and Jordan Love is sitting there and you're looking at a 37-year-old quarterback, you have to do something. It's the same thing the Patriots did with Tom Brady, who was royally pissed, who was motivated, who beat back the challenge from Jimmy Garoppolo. And then after he beat back the challenge, he wanted his reward. After he beat back the challenge, he said, okay, I win. Give me that extension. I don't think Rodgers is even at that point. I think he is so hurt by it that he doesn't want to beat back the challenge and then get his extension. He wants to beat back the challenge, say, screw you didn't believe me. I'll go somewhere else now. Yeah. I mean, I don't know that, but I'm listening to people closer to Rodgers. That's the vibe you get. So I don't think it's wrong because these guys are breakable. They could go. And I think it's okay to do that. You're right. But you also have to do what's best for the team, I think, too.
What do you think about Russell Wilson's future in Seattle? Who is the front runner to land him? Will he remain in Seattle?
I think he's going to stay there. And I know that there's been some Warren Moon, former Houston, I think he was a Seattle quarterback at the end, but Warren Moon opined that he felt that it was headed for divorce. I just don't think that's going to happen. I just, Chicago could be, right? Wouldn't you be giddy about that?
Yeah, but I thought that broke down a little bit. I honestly don't really know what's going on out there because all the reporting out of Seattle is that this relationship is fractured beyond repair. And like you said, Warren Moon maybe being the most vocal about the fact that this is a divorce that has no other alternative. And yet I could also see a scenario where it makes the most sense for him. It makes the most sense for the organization and he stays.
Yeah, I mean, Pete Carroll is a reconciler, I think, knowing him for a long time, having covered him when he was here. As opposed to Bill, who might back a player into a corner in some ways and finally get fatigued. I don't know if Pete Carroll would. I think Pete is more of a love, let's come together and figure this out. Not that Bill isn't, but I think that both those sides got too far down the road so that they were standing with their backs to each other, arms crossed. I don't think Pete will ever get like that with Russell Wilson. So I would be slow to say that he's going someplace else.
So Russell Wilson's in Seattle, Tom Brady's in Tampa, Cam Newton is in New England, and Aaron Rodgers is anywhere but Green Bay. Is that the consensus?
He's going to Houston. Straight up trade with the Texans, and Watson goes up to Green Bay. I mean, it's wild, isn't it? I mean, Teddy Bridgewater is going to be on the market. Garoppolo is out there, so it's unprecedented. I think in terms of it's not even unprecedented. I think it's unprecedented in terms of the mobility of quarterbacks around the NFL right now.
All right, Tommy Curran, the czar, was it? That was your official title?
Yeah.
Thanks for being with us.